The Galactic Council chamber felt like a tomb, Chairman. Vexstar looked out at the half-empty seats where human representatives used to sit. The chamber that had once been filled with hope and cooperation now echoed with fear and desperation. 6 months had passed since humanity left, 6 months of chaos that nobody had thought possible. The galaxy was falling apart and everyone knew it. 12 worlds had gone completely silent, their populations were dead or fled. The Corvani-Zelith War had spread to involve 8 different species. Trade routes that had been safe for 50 years were now hunting grounds for pirates and raiders. The Outer Rim colonies that had thrived under human protection were dying without supplies, medicine, or security. The civilized galaxy was shrinking every day as more worlds fell into darkness. Representative Quinder of the Altarian Republic stood to address the chamber. His people had been saved from extinction by human help 40 years ago. Now they were facing extinction again, this time from Corvani raiders who knew no human ships would come to help. His blue skin was pale with exhaustion. His water-filled suit was cracked from stress. His large eyes were filled with tears. Honored colleagues, he began, his voice shaking, we must face the truth. We made a terrible mistake. Humanity was never our enemy. They were our protectors, our helpers, our conscience. We let fear and pride blind us to their value. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Even the delegates who had voted against humanity were starting to admit they had been wrong. My world is dying, he continued. The Corvani attack us every day. They burn our cities, they kill our children, they take our people as slaves. We have no ships to fight them, we have no weapons to defend ourselves. His voice broke as he spoke. The humans saved us once before. They asked for nothing in return, they just wanted to help. Now we are dying and there is nobody to save us. Representative Zexilai of the Vorthan Trade Union stood up next. She had purple skin and tentacles for hair. Her people were merchants who had grown rich from trade routes that humans protected. She had voted against humanity 6 months ago. She had argued that humans were too controlling, too involved in everyone else's business. Now she spoke with shame and regret. My people have made more profit since the humans left, she said quietly. We charge higher prices because there is no competition. We take whatever we want because there is nobody to stop us. She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of her fellow delegates. But what good are profits if civilization collapses? Our trade routes are under constant attack. Our merchants are afraid to leave their home ports. We are making money from fewer transactions because we are taking advantage of the chaos the humans used to prevent. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. We are becoming the very thing the humans protected others from. We are becoming bullies and thieves. Representative Colvin of the Hegemony spoke next. His people had always tried to stay neutral in galactic affairs. They had supported humanity because humans helped maintain the peace that neutrality required. The refugee crisis is destroying our worlds, he said. Our planets are flooded with people fleeing war and starvation. We do not have enough food, medicine, or shelter for our own people, much less millions of refugees. He gestured to the empty seats where human representatives used to sit. The humans used to coordinate refugee assistance. They found homes for displaced people. They provided supplies and medical care. Now we are drowning in suffering and we have no idea how to help. Chairman Vexstar called for order as the debate grew more heated. Some delegates wanted to formally apologize to humanity and beg for their return. Others argued that the galaxy needed to learn to solve its own problems without human help. A few extremists still insisted that humanity's withdrawal proved they were never truly committed to galactic peace. They claimed humans had abandoned the galaxy in its hour of need. But the statistics told a different story. In 6 months without human peacekeepers, the galaxy had seen more warfare than in the previous 10 years combined. Without human medical teams, plagues were spreading through the Outer Rim colonies. Without human diplomats, trade disputes were becoming shooting wars. Dr. Sunghan had been Earth's chief medical representative to the Council before the withdrawal. She had left behind detailed reports on the health systems humans had helped establish. Reading those reports now, the Council realized that human medical expertise had been preventing disasters across dozens of worlds. Without that expertise, those worlds were now facing epidemics that could kill billions. The Kepler 438c mining colony had been wiped out by a plague that human doctors had controlled for years. The Ross 128b agricultural world had starved. When their farming equipment failed without human maintenance, the Tau Ceti, refugee camps had collapsed when human supply runs stopped. Every world that humans had helped was now struggling or dead. The galaxy was learning that peace, prosperity, and health did not just happen by themselves. They required constant work by people who cared about others more than themselves. Representative Yilmar of the Cosmic Preservation Society had been one of humanity's strongest supporters. She had always argued that humans were the galaxy's greatest asset. Now she stood to make one final plea. We are not just losing worlds, she said, we are losing our souls. The galaxy is becoming a darker, crueler place every day without human influence, she pointed to the tactical display showing the expanding wars. The red zones of conflict were spreading like a disease. The yellow zones of tension were turning red. The green zones of peace were disappearing. Look at what we have become, she said. We are no longer a community of civilized species working together. We are predators fighting over scraps while our civilization crumbles. The session ended with a vote that surprised nobody. The Council would send a formal delegation to Earth to request humanity's return to galactic affairs. The vote was unanimous, but as the delegates filed out of the chamber, many wondered if it was already too late. The galaxy had been bleeding for 6 months. Millions were dead. Entire civilizations had been destroyed. Some wounds were too deep to heal. Some trust, once broken, could never be repaired. The delegation would go to Earth, but they would not go as the proud leaders of a galactic civilization. They would go as beggars pleading for help from the people they had betrayed, and they would have to face the hardest question of all: why should humanity help a galaxy that had rejected them when they needed help the most? The meeting room on Luna Station was small and simple. It had a round table with 12 chairs and large windows that looked out at Earth. The blue and green planet hung in space like a jewel, showing the galaxy what they had lost. The human delegation was small but powerful. Admiral Jo Yunhai sat at the head of the table, her uniform covered with ribbons from 50 years of galactic service. Dr. Yang Mena sat beside her, still wearing the simple clothes of a medical officer. Captain Li Haiyan was there too, the man who had walked out of the council chamber 6 months ago. Prime Minister Shin Yuna represented Earth's government. She had been elected after the council's betrayal on a promise to put Earth first. Her approval ratings were highest when she promised to keep humanity away from galactic politics. Across from them sat Chairman Vexstar and 5 other council representatives. They looked small and defeated. Their usual arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine fear and desperation. Chairman Vexstar spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. We come before you not as leaders, but as people begging for help. The galaxy is dying without humanity. We were wrong to exclude you from the Universal Protection Treaty. We were wrong to question your reasons for helping others. We were wrong about everything. Prime Minister Shin Yuna listened carefully, her face showing no emotion. She had been briefed on the situation. The reports were worse than anyone had expected in 8 months, she said quietly. 17 worlds have gone silent completely. The death toll from wars that could have been prevented is over 50 million people. The damage to galactic trade is estimated at 4 trillion credits. The breakdown of medical systems has created health crises that will take decades to fix. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. You created this disaster in 6 months. What took us 50 years to build, you destroyed in half a year. Chairman Vexstar bowed his head in shame. We know the cost of our mistake. We are prepared to offer humanity full membership in the Universal Protection Treaty with voting rights equal to any 3 other species combined. We will provide funding for human peacekeeping operations at levels never offered before. Dr. Yang Mena leaned forward, her medical training making her focus on the human cost. What about the worlds you have already lost? What about the billions who died while you debated whether to swallow your pride? The alien delegation had no answer for that. They had come expecting to negotiate terms for humanity's return, but they were facing a trial for their crimes. Representative Quinder of the Altarian Republic tried to speak. Please, he said, my people are dying every day. We lose thousands to Corvani attacks. We cannot hold out much longer. Captain Li Haiyan spoke for the first time since entering the room. We left because you told us we were not wanted. Now you want us back because you need us. That is not partnership. That is slavery. He looked directly at Chairman Vexstar. You voted unanimously to exclude us. You said we were too dangerous to be trusted with protecting others. Now you discover that the galaxy is too dangerous without us protecting it. Prime Minister Shin Yuna stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth's blue oceans and green continents. Her planet was peaceful and safe, while the galaxy burned around it. Humanity will return to galactic affairs, she said finally, but not as your servants or your employees. We return as equal partners with full voice in all decisions that affect galactic peace. She turned back to face the alien delegation. We return with the authority to act independently when lives are at stake without waiting for committee approval or council debate. Representatives XLI of the Vorthan Trade Union looked hopeful. What are your other conditions, Prime Minister Shin? Yuna smiled, but it was not a warm smile. We return with the understanding that this betrayal will never happen again. The next time fear and prejudice drive galactic policy, humanity will not just withdraw. She paused, letting her words sink in. We will remember who our true friends are, and we will act accordingly. The alien delegates looked confused. What does that mean? They asked. Admiral Zhou Yunhai answered for the Prime Minister. It means we will have a list of species who supported us and a list of species who betrayed us. When the next crisis comes, we will help our friends first. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity was not just returning to galactic affairs. They were returning as the dominant power with the authority to choose who lived and who died. Captain Li Hyun pulled out a datapad. This contains our terms for return, he said. Full partnership status in all galactic organizations, independent authority for human peacekeeping forces, priority access to all trade routes and resources, reparations for the damage caused by our withdrawal. He slid the pad across the table to Chairman Vexstar. And most importantly, formal recognition that humanity is the galaxy's primary peacekeeping force. All other species will support human operations or stay out of our way. Young Mina added her own condition. All medical systems in the galaxy will be designed and supervised by human doctors. We will not allow another medical crisis like the one you created. The alien delegates read through the terms with growing dismay. The conditions were harsh but fair. They would make humanity the galaxy's unofficial rulers, but humans had proven they could be trusted with that power. Chairman Vexstar looked up from the datapad. These terms are acceptable, he said. We have no choice but to accept them, Prime Minister. Shin Yuna nodded. The treaty signing will take place in 1 month. The ceremony will be broadcast across the galaxy so everyone can see that humanity has returned. But she held up a warning finger. Remember this lesson well? The galaxy cannot survive without humanity, but humanity can survive without the galaxy. The next time you forget that lesson, we will not be so forgiving. The negotiations continued for 3 days, working out the details of humanity's return. Human ships would resume their peacekeeping duties, but with expanded authority. Human doctors would rebuild the medical systems that had collapsed. Human diplomats would resolve the conflicts that had erupted. But the galaxy that humanity returned to was not the same one they had left. It was darker, more dangerous, more desperate. The trust that had taken 50 years to build would take decades to rebuild. The treaty signing took place 1 month later in the same council chamber where Captain Li Hyun had announced humanity's withdrawal. Representatives from every surviving species attended. The ceremony was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. As human ships began moving back to their peacekeeping stations, the galaxy collectively sighed with relief. The chaos began to recede. Conflicts were resolved. Hope returned to the Outer Rim colonies, but the galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the price of betraying those who serve others. The scars would remain for generations. The memory of 8 months of hell would never fade. Humanity returned not as the eager helpers they had once been, but as experienced partners who understood their own worth. They had learned that respect must be earned and maintained, and in the depths of space, human patrol ships carried a new motto painted on their hulls. Never again would they serve those who did not value their sacrifice. Never again would they give everything for nothing in return. The galaxy was safe once more, but it was humanity that kept it safe, and everyone, from the smallest colony to the mightiest empire, knew that their survival depended on keeping humanity happy. The humans had left without a word. Now they returned with the galaxy's future in their hands. Choi Min-ho had been the youngest human to ever command a peacekeeping fleet. At 35 years old, he led a task force of 20 ships that kept the peace in the Centauri border region. The region was a dangerous place where 5 different species competed for territory and resources. Wars had been fought there for centuries. The Corvani Empire wanted to expand their territory. The Zelith Confederacy wanted mining rights. The Vorthan Trade Union wanted control of shipping lanes. The Altarian Republic wanted to protect their colonies. The hegemony wanted to stay neutral, but was often forced to choose sides. For 10 years, Choi Minho had prevented those wars from starting. His diplomatic skills had stopped 3 major conflicts before they began. His tactical knowledge had ended 2 smaller wars with very few deaths. His fleet patrolled the borders, making sure no one tried to take what belonged to others. Now his fleet was gone, and the Centauri border region was exploding into violence. Corvani Empire had always been aggressive, but they had been held back by fear of human peacekeepers. The Corvani were warriors who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They had powerful ships and disciplined armies, but they knew humans would fight them if they attacked innocent people. Within 1 week of humanity's withdrawal, the Corvani launched attacks on 3 neighboring systems. They claimed the systems had always belonged to them. They said they were just reclaiming their rightful territory. The Zelith Confederacy saw opportunity in the chaos. They were merchants and miners who cared only about profit. They had been waiting for years to seize control of the rich asteroid fields in the border region with no human peacekeepers to stop them. The Zelith sent their corporate fleets to claim mining rights on worlds that could not defend themselves. They offered the local governments a choice: pay us or we will take the resources anyway. The Vorthan Trade Union started blockading planets that refused to pay their inflated prices. They had always wanted to control all trade in the region, but humans had prevented them from creating monopolies. Now they surrounded entire worlds with their merchant fleets. They would not let food or medicine reach the surface until the planets agreed to their terms on Earth. In the Global Defense Command Center, Admiral Jo Yunhai watched the situation reports with growing anger. She had been humanity's highest-ranking military officer in the Council Service. She had commanded over 200,000 human soldiers, pilots, and support staff scattered across the galaxy. The reports coming in were worse than anyone had expected. The galaxy was not just having problems. It was falling apart. The death toll is rising every day, reported her aide Commander Park Sun-woo. The Corvani-Zelith conflict has already killed 2 million people. The Vorthan blockades are causing famine on 6 worlds. Piracy has increased by 400% in sectors we used to patrol. Admiral Jo Yunhai studied the tactical displays showing the expanding conflicts. Red zones marked areas of active warfare. Yellow zones showed regions where fighting might start soon. Green zones showed stable, peaceful areas. 3 months ago, the map had been mostly green thanks to human peacekeeping efforts. Now it was a sea of red and yellow. The green zones were shrinking every day, ma'am. Commander Park Sun-woo said carefully, we are getting thousands of requests for help. The Council is asking us to think again about our withdrawal. Some of these worlds are going to die completely if we do not help. The Admiral looked at the young Commander Park. Sun-woo had lost his brother in a peacekeeping mission. 2 years ago, his brother had died protecting an alien colony from pirates. The aliens had been grateful for about 6 months before they started complaining about human military presence. Our orders are clear, she said. All human forces stay within the solar system. We are not the galaxy's police anymore. But even as she spoke, Admiral Jo Yunhai knew the cost of human withdrawal was becoming too high. The galaxy was destroying itself, and humanity's leaders were starting to feel guilty about it. The Corvani Empire was not satisfied with 3 systems. They wanted more. Their armies marched across planets, killing anyone who resisted. They enslaved entire populations. They turned peaceful worlds into military bases. The Corvani had always been cruel, but humans had kept them contained in their own territory. Now they were spreading like a disease across the galaxy. The Zelith Confederacy was strip mining entire worlds. They did not care about the environments they destroyed or the people they displaced. They wanted profits and nothing else mattered. Worlds that had been green and beautiful for thousands of years became gray wastelands in months. The Zelith mining ships sucked up every valuable resource and left behind poisoned soil and polluted water. The Vorthan Trade Union was starving planets that refused to pay their prices. Children died while food shipments sat in orbit waiting for payment that would never come. The Altarian Republic tried to fight back, but they were peaceful. People who had never needed a strong military humans had always protected them from their aggressive neighbors. Now the Altarians were being attacked from three sides. The Corvani wanted their territory, the Zeleth wanted their resources, the Vorthan wanted their trade routes. The Altarians had no chance of winning. The hegemony tried to stay neutral, but neutrality was impossible when wars were raging on every border. Their planets were flooded with refugees, their resources were stretched beyond. The breaking point. Admiral Zhou Yunhai received a personal message from her old friend General Quinder of the Altarian Republic. His people had been saved by human help 40 years ago. Now they were facing destruction again. Please, he wrote, my people are dying. We cannot fight three enemies at once. Our children are starving. Our cities are burning. I know we hurt you. I know we made mistakes, but please do not let us die for the Council's stupidity. The Admiral read the message 3 times. She had served with General Quinder for 15 years. She had attended his daughter's wedding. She had held his grandchildren in her arms. Now she was watching his people die, and she could do nothing to help. The reports kept coming in. Every day brought news of new conflicts, new massacres, new tragedies. Wars that had been prevented for decades were now raging across the galaxy. The Corvani had captured 12 worlds and were attacking more. The Zeleth had destroyed 8 planetary environments. The Vorthan had starved 6 worlds into submission. Pirate attacks had increased by 500%. The Outer Rim colonies had fallen silent one by one. 17 worlds had stopped sending messages. Nobody knew if their populations were dead or just cut off from galactic communications. The Council sent desperate messages to Earth. Every day they begged for human help. They offered money, territory, voting rights, anything to bring humans back, but the damage was already done. Millions were dead. Entire civilizations were being destroyed. The galaxy was learning that peace was not something that just happened by itself. It had to be protected, it had to be fought for, it had to be maintained by people who cared more about others than themselves. Admiral Zhou Yunhai looked at the tactical display one more time. The red zones were spreading, the yellow zones were turning red. The green zones were almost gone. The galaxy was bleeding, and Earth was the only one who could stop it. Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars stream past through the viewport. The Mercy's flight had been his home for 12 years. It was not a warship or a fancy passenger liner. It was a medical transport vessel designed to carry hope to the hopeless. His ship was known throughout the Epsilon sector as the vessel that brought life to dying worlds when plague struck the mining colony on Kepler 438c. Kim Dae-ho was there within days. He brought vaccines and medicine. He stayed for 3 months helping the colonists recover when the agricultural planet Ross 128b faced terrible famine. His ship delivered food and farming equipment. He taught the aliens how to grow crops in harsh conditions. He helped them build irrigation systems. He stayed until their harvest was successful. When war refugees from the Proxima conflict needed transport to safety, the Mercy's flight made 17 trips carrying families to new homes. He never charged them money. He never asked for payment. He just helped because it was the right thing to do now. The Mercy's flight was heading back to Earth, leaving behind a dozen worlds that depended on its regular visits. Dr. Young Mina sat beside him in the co-pilot seat. She had been his partner for 8 years, both in work and in life. She was the ship's chief medical officer and the best doctor in the Outer Rim. Her hands had performed thousands of surgeries. Her knowledge had saved countless lives. She had trained alien doctors on primitive worlds. She had set up hospitals where none existed before. She had fought diseases that had no names. She had brought hope to places where hope had died. Now her hands felt empty and useless. The children on Kepler 438c will run out of medicine in 6 months, she said quietly. Her voice was full of sadness. The survivors on Ross 128b do not know how to maintain the farming equipment we installed. The refugee camps in the Tau Ceti system will collapse without our supply runs. Kim Dae-ho nodded, his jaw tight with anger and pain. I know, but the Council made their choice. They do not want our help anymore behind them. The Outer Rim colonies were already beginning to struggle. The Healers Guild tried to fill the gap left by human medical teams. The guild was made up of doctors from various species. They had good intentions, but they lacked the resources, the dedication, and most importantly, the strange human ability to work miracles with limited supplies. The guild had their own people too. care for their own problems to solve when the Kepler 438c colony sent desperate messages. Begging for medical assistance, the guild said they would send a team when resources became available. That team never came. The colony had 50,000 people. Living in underground cities, they mined rare minerals that were used in advanced technology. The work was dangerous and accidents happened often. Human medical teams had visited every month, bringing supplies and treating the injured. Now the colony was on its own. The mining accidents continued, but there were no human doctors to help. The colonists tried to treat themselves, but they lacked the knowledge and equipment. Many died from injuries that human doctors could have easily healed. Our young Mena had left behind detailed medical records and training materials. She had taught the colony's medical staff everything she could, but theory was not the same as experience. Books could not replace skilled hands. 3 months after the humans left, the colony sent a final message. The plague had returned. The same disease that had nearly destroyed them years earlier was spreading through the underground cities. Without human medical support, they had no way to fight it. The message was brief and formal. The colony of Kepler 438c is going offline due to medical emergency. We thank the galaxy for 50 years of human assistance. We will remember their kindness. That was the last anyone heard from 50,000 people. Kim Dae-ho and Dr. Yang Mina received the message while traveling through hyperspace toward Earth. They sat in silence for a long time. Neither of them spoke because there was nothing to say. The Mercy's flight had made over 300 medical missions in 12 years. They had saved millions of lives. They had prevented dozens of epidemics. They had brought hope to the darkest corners of the galaxy. Now they were flying home while the people they had protected died alone. The Ross 128b agricultural world lasted 4 months without human support. The farming equipment that Kim Dae-ho had installed was complex and required regular maintenance. The alien farmers tried their best, but they did not understand the technology. When the equipment began to fail, the crops began to die. The world that had been green and productive became brown and barren. The population of 2 million faced starvation. They sent messages to the council begging for help. The council forwarded the request to the Agricultural Development Commission. The commission said they would send experts when their schedule allowed. The experts never came. The world fell silent after 6 months. The refugee camps in the Tau Ceti system collapsed even faster. Without regular supply runs from the Mercy's flight, the camps ran out of food and medicine. The refugees were mostly families fleeing war in their home systems. They had no money, no weapons, no way to protect themselves. Local governments had agreed to temporarily house the refugees, but only because human organizations provided all the supplies and support. When the humans left, the local governments decided the refugees were too expensive to maintain. The camps were closed. The refugees were forced to leave. Most of them tried to return to their war-torn homeworlds. Many died during the journey. Others were killed when they arrived home. The Tau Ceti refugee crisis became a footnote in galactic history. 60,000 people who had been saved by human kindness were now dead or missing. The galaxy moved on to other concerns. Dr. Yang Mina kept track of every world they had helped. She maintained contact with alien doctors she had trained. She monitored the medical situations in colonies they had visited. The reports were all the same. Without human medical support, the Outer Rim was dying. Diseases that had been controlled for decades were spreading again. Hospitals that had been built by human engineers were falling apart. Medical supplies that had been regularly delivered by human ships were running out. She showed the reports to Kim Dae-ho every day. Each report was another tragedy, another failure, another death that could have been prevented. We could go back, she said one day. We could ignore the orders. We could continue helping people. Kim Dae-ho looked at her with love and sadness in his eyes. What happens when the council declares us criminals? He asked. What happens when they send ships to arrest us? What happens when they brand all humans as lawbreakers? Dr. Yang Mina had no answer for that. She knew he was right. They had been ordered home by their own government. If they disobeyed, they would be outlaws. But the knowledge that they could help while people died was eating at her soul. She had become a doctor to save lives. Now she was flying away while lives were lost. The galaxy was learning the price of rejecting human help, and that price was measured in millions of lives. Park Ji-won sat in her office on Andromeda Station. For the last time, the walls were covered with photos of her 8 years working there. Pictures of successful trade negotiations, pictures of disputes she had resolved, pictures of alien families. She had helped. Her desk was clean now, everything was packed in boxes ready to go. Outside her window she could see the massive trading hub that connected 12 different star systems. Ships from dozens of worlds docked here every day. Merchants traded everything from rare minerals to exotic foods to advanced technology. For 8 years, Park Ji-won had been the person who made sure everything ran smoothly. She was the one who stopped the Vorthen merchants from cheating smaller traders. She was the one who negotiated fair prices when disputes arose. She was the one who made sure the powerful did not crush the weak. Her office had been the place where impossible problems got solved. Now her office was empty and chaos was already beginning. Through her window she could see Vorthen merchant ships charging triple prices for medical supplies. The smaller colonies needed those supplies desperately, but they could not afford the new prices. The Vorthen knew this. They knew no human would come to stop them anymore. She could see Zelith mining ships claiming territory that belonged to peaceful farming communities. The farmers had worked those asteroids for generations, but they had no weapons to defend themselves. The Zelith had big ships and powerful weapons. They took what they wanted. She could see pirate ships lurking near the shipping lanes waiting for cargo vessels to attack. These lanes had been safe for decades because human patrol ships protected them. Now the pirates knew no human ships would come to help. Anyone who traveled alone was asking to be robbed or killed. Station Commander Crix appeared in her doorway. He was tall and thin with 4 arms and compound eyes like an insect. His people came from a world where they lived in giant hives. He had worked with humans for 15 years. He considered Park Ji-won a friend. "Where are you going?" he asked. His voice sounded confused and hurt. "Home," she said without looking at him. "But what about your responsibilities?" he asked. "What about the traders who need your help? What about the disputes that need resolving? What about the peace agreements you helped create?" Park Ji-won finally looked at him. She had known Crix for 8 years. She had attended his daughter's wedding. She had helped him negotiate better working conditions for his people. She had shared meals with his family. "The council made their choice," she said. "They do not want our help anymore, but surely you can stay." He said, "You can work independently. You do not need the council's permission to help people." Park Ji-won shook her head. The orders came from Earth Central Command. All humans are to return home immediately, no exceptions. She picked up her last box and walked past Crix toward the docking bay. Her ship was waiting. The crew was already aboard. They had been her team for 5 years. They had worked together to solve problems across the galaxy. Now they were all going home. Crix followed her down the corridor. "Please," he said, "you cannot just abandon us. We need you. The station needs you. The whole sector needs you." Park Ji-won stopped walking. She turned to face Crix. "One last time, we gave you 50 years. She said, "We bled for you. We died for you. We asked for nothing but respect in return. You called us dangerous. You said we could not be trusted, but I never said that," protested Crix. "My people always supported humans." Park Ji-won nodded. "I know, but your support was not enough. The council voted unanimously to exclude us. Now they have what? They wanted a galaxy without dangerous humans." She continued walking toward her ship. Crix followed, but he had no more words. Left behind them, the station was already falling apart. Without human guidance in the trading halls, fights were breaking out between different species. The Vorthen were refusing to honor old contracts. The Zelith were demanding payment in advance for all deliveries. The smaller traders were being pushed out of business. The station's security forces tried to maintain order, but they were overwhelmed. They had always relied on human peacekeepers to handle the serious disputes. Now they were on their own, and they were not prepared. Commander Crix returned to his command center and watched the chaos spreading through his station. His aide, a nervous creature with blue skin and tentacles for hair, brought him reports of the deteriorating situation. "Sir," she said, 3 merchant ships have been attacked in the past hour. The Vorthen are blocking access to the medical supply depot. The Zelith are claiming exclusive mining rights in the outer asteroid belt." Crix stared at the displays showing his station falling apart. "What about the human ships?" he asked. "Are they responding to distress calls?" His aide checked the communications board. "Sir, we have tried contacting every human vessel in the sector. They are not answering our calls. They are just leaving." Crix had worked with humans for 15 years. He knew Park Ji-won personally. He had shared meals with her family when they visited the station. He thought he understood humans, but this silent departure confused him. Where were the angry speeches? Where were the demands for apologies? Where were the threats of revenge? Why were they not fighting back? The answer came in a message broadcast on all frequencies from Earth Central Command. Humanity withdraws from all galactic affairs effective immediately. All peacekeeping missions are terminated. All trade agreements are void. All diplomatic relations are suspended. We wish you well in your future endeavors. That was it. No threats, no warnings, no demands. Just a polite goodbye from a species that had spent 50 years bleeding for other scriks. Watched the last human transport ship disappear into hyperspace. Park Ji-won and her team were gone. The station that had been a model of interspecies cooperation for decades was now a battleground. Within hours, the situation became critical. The Vorthen had completely blockaded the medical supply depot. Sick aliens were dying because they could not get medicine. The Zalith had seized 3 asteroid mining facilities by force. The original owners were now refugees with nowhere to go. Pirates attacked 5 cargo ships in the shipping lanes. 4 ships were destroyed with all hands. The 5th ship limped back to the station with its crew barely alive. The captain begged for protection, but the station had no ships to send. The communication board lit up with distress calls from across the sector. Colonies were under attack. Trade routes were being raided. Mining stations were being seized by force. Everyone was asking for help, but there was no help to give. The humans who had maintained peace for 50 years were gone. The galaxy was learning what it meant to solve its own problems, and the lesson was written in blood. Commander Crix sat in his command center watching his sector fall apart. He had 4 arms, but he felt powerless. He had compound eyes, but he could not see a solution. He had worked with humans for 15 years, but he had never understood how much work they really did. The silence left behind was deafening, and it was only the beginning. Captain Lee Hyan walked through the long hallway of the Galactic Council building. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Each step brought him closer to the chamber where his life would change forever. He carried a small data pad in his right hand. The pad contained 50 years of human service to the galaxy. 50 years of blood, sweat, and tears. The hallway was empty today. Most alien delegates avoided him now. They whispered behind closed doors about the dangerous humans. They said humans were too emotional, too unpredictable. But Lee Hyan remembered when those same aliens begged for human help 5 years ago. The people of Kepler 442b were dying. Their sun was getting colder. Their crops were failing. Their children were starving. Captain Lee Hyan and his team spent 2 years on that frozen world. They built new heating systems. They brought food and medicine. They taught the aliens how to grow food in the cold. When they left, the planet was green and full of life again. 3 years ago, the Vorthen Empire and the Zelith Republic were about to start a war. Both sides had massive fleets ready to fight. Millions would have died. But human negotiators worked for 6 months without rest. They talked to both sides. They found a solution that made everyone happy. The war never happened last year. Pirates attacked the trade routes near the Centauri system. Merchant ships were being destroyed every day. The aliens asked for help. Human patrol ships came immediately. They fought the pirates for 8 months. They lost 12 ships and 300 good people. But they cleared the pirates out. The trade routes became safe again. Now, the same aliens who begged for help said humans were dangerously. Hyan reached the chamber doors. They were huge and made of some kind of blue crystal. He could hear voices inside. The council was already meeting. They were talking about humans again. He took a deep breath and walked inside. The chamber was enormous. It could hold representatives from 200 different worlds. The ceiling was so high, it seemed to touch the stars. Most of the seats were filled today. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the humans. Chairman Vextar sat at the center of the chamber. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His people came from a desert world near the galactic core. He had been chairman for 10 years. He used to call humans his greatest allies. Now he looked at Lee Hyan like he was looking at an enemy representative. Quinder from the Altarian Republic sat in the front row. His people had blue skin and large eyes. They breathed water instead of air, so he wore a special suit filled with liquid. Lee Hyan had saved his world from a plague 15 years ago. Quinder used to send him gifts every year on the anniversary. Representative Zexeli from the Vorthen trade union was there too. She had purple skin and tentacles for hair. Her people were merchants who cared only about profit. She had made billions of credits from trade routes that humans protected. All of them were here to vote on the Universal Protection Treaty. The treaty would decide who could be peacekeepers in the galaxy, who could mediate disputes, who could protect the weak from the strong. Humans had been doing this work for 50 years. They had never asked for payment. They had never demanded special treatment. They just wanted to help make the galaxy a better place. But the council had decided humans were too dangerous. Chairman Vexstar stood up when Li Haiyan entered the chamber, became quiet. 200 alien representatives turned to look at the human captain. Welcome, Captain Li Haiyan, said the chairman. His voice echoed through the chamber. We are honored by your presence. Li Haiyan walked to the center of the chamber. There was a small platform there where speakers could address the council. He stepped onto it and looked around at all the faces watching him. I have served this council for 25 years, he said. His voice was calm and steady. I have seen humans die protecting worlds that were not their own. I have watched human doctors work for days without sleep to save alien children. I have seen human engineers build homes for refugees who had nowhere else to go. The chamber was completely silent. Everyone was listening. My people have bled for this galaxy, he continued. We have given everything we had. We never asked for anything in return. We just wanted to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We wanted to help build a better future for all species. Representative Quinder shifted in his seat. He looked uncomfortable. Today you vote on the Universal Protection Treaty, he said. You will decide who can be peacekeepers, who can protect the innocent, who can stand between the strong and the weak. Li Haiyan pulled out his datapad and held it up so everyone could see it. This contains the records of every human peacekeeping mission for the past 50 years, he said. It shows every world we have saved, every war we have prevented, every life we have protected. He placed the pad on the platform in front of him. The treaty you are voting on excludes humans from peacekeeping duties, he said. It says we are too emotional, too unpredictable, too dangerous to be trusted with protecting others. Chairman Vexstar nodded slowly. Yes, Captain, that is correct. The Council has decided that humans, while well-meaning, are not suitable for such important responsibilities. Li Haiyan looked directly at the chairman. Your decision is final, he asked. It is said, Vexstar. The vote was taken yesterday. The result was unanimously. Haiyan nodded slowly. He had expected this. The aliens had been afraid of humans for months now. They said humans were too willing to fight, too quick to use violence. But the truth was that humans were too good at what they did. The other species were jealous and afraid. Very well, he said. I accept your decision. He reached into his jacket and pulled out another datapad. This one was bigger and heavier. This contains something different, he said. It has the location of every human settlement in the galaxy, every trade route we maintain, every peacekeeping station we operate, every hospital we have built, every school we have established. The chamber erupted in whispers. Representatives leaned forward in their seats. It also contains our resignation from all galactic affairs, he said, effective immediately. The whispers stopped. The chamber became deadly quiet. What do you mean? Asked Chairman Vexstar. Li Haiyan looked around the chamber one more time at all the faces that had once welcomed him. We are done here, he said simply. We gave you 50 years of service. We asked only for respect and partnership. Instead, you chose fear and suspicion. He picked up both datapads and walked toward the chamber doors. Every human ship has already received the same message, he said, without turning around. Come home. We are finished here. Representative Quinder stood up suddenly. Captain, please, he called out. Surely, we can discuss this matter. Li Haiyan stopped at the doors but did not turn around. We tried to discuss it, he said. Yesterday you voted to exclude us from the treaty. Today you learn the consequences of that choice. He walked out of the chamber, leaving behind 50 years of human dedication to galactic peace. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions at each other. Chairman Vexstar banged his gavel trying to restore order, but Li Haiyan was already gone. Within an hour, every human ship in the galaxy received the same message. Come home. We are done here. No explanations, no arguments, no threats. Just a simple command that every human understood perfectly. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to lose humanity's helping hand, and that lesson would be more painful than anyone could have imagined.